What's up guys, welcome back to the Piston Show. I'm Keshi Dillon and today is going to be an interesting day because I'm driving these gorgeous cars behind me, the Mazda CX-60. So the launch is tomorrow, but today I'm actually going to be driving this car to Ipoh and back just as a first impression drive. But just to recap a little bit, the Mazda CX-60 was launched in global markets somewhere about 3 years ago. So it took quite some time to arrive here in Malaysia. But the thing is, it has arrived here and it has got other car makers to stand up and take notice. Why? Simply because the CX60 is priced at just under 201,000 ringgit. And that puts it squarely in the crosshairs of the likes of the Honda CR-V, RS, EHEV hybrid, among others, of course. In fact, any car maker that has a model that sits between the 180 to the 210, 220,000 ringgit price range should be worried, because the CX60 is promising to be quite a capable contender. But when the CX60 was first launched in global markets, a lot of people were actually excited about it because Mazda was reviving the straight six engine through the CX60. So, should be a good thing, right? Well, except that we Malaysians are not going to be getting that straight six engine. Not for the CX60 at least. So, with the CX60, you're only going to be getting a single variant, the 2.5G high. So, we're not going to get the 3.3 or the 2.5 turbo and such. Not yet, at least. According to Burmaz, they're actually going to be analyzing market demands and then respond accordingly. So they're starting their CX60 journey with this 4-cylinder model behind me. So how does it feel? Should the other car makers really be worried? I'm going to try to answer all of this and more in this video and tell you whether it's worth your hard-earned money. Stick around. Okay, so starting this video off by talking a little bit about the design of the CX60. Of course, there's nothing much that I can say that has not been said already, because this car has already been in global markets for the past 3 years. So anything that I'm about to say is relevant for the local Malaysian market. So in terms of design, it's obviously still very much a Mazda. Now, Mazda's design language is known as Kodo. And what Kodo basically means is breathing life into a car. That's what Mazda says. But the CX60 seized global markets when it was introduced simply because of the way it looks. Now, just to refresh your memory, this is what our current crop of Mazdas look like in Malaysia. And it's something that we've seen, we are quite familiar with already, and I think we are ready for something new. And that something new, my friends, is this, the CX60, and of course the CX80, which would have been launched when by the time you see this video. So one of the key highlights of the design of the CX60 is the headlights, this L-shaped headlights over here. Now, and they are also double stacked, which is something we have not seen before with Mazda cars. I truly do apologize for the background noise over here because we're shooting this video right next to a very busy street, but hey, focus. Anyway, the other thing about this design is the near vertical grille. It's quite imposing, it's a huge grille and there's no mistaking it for anything else. But there's a little winglet that merges into the headlights over here, and this integrates the turn signals. So that is also something that is quite unique to Mazda. And the other thing that is worth mentioning over here is the overall silhouette of the car. See, it has a very long bonnet and then a very short end, and this just gives it a very masculine presence. So moving towards the back of the car, you still get this sort of L-shaped, not really L-shaped, but they do form a shape over there. And it's a very nice evolution of the current design of Mazdas. And let me see what else I can show you. Obviously, it's a big car, and being big, you obviously get a lot of boot space. Let me see if and you do get a space saver wheel. For me, this is quite important. And since we are here, let me just try to show you the interior of the car. The seat, obviously a new design as compared to the current crop of Mazdas. For the driver, you get 10-way electronic adjustment, where else for the passenger, you get 8-way adjustment. And you also get memory function seats, with the memory functions being over here. I'm glad it's nice and quiet in here. Anyway, this is how the interior of the CX60 looks like. It's very much in line with the current, with Mazda's overall design language, but yet at the same time, it's quite refreshing. You get a giant infotainment screen over here. You get a, let me see if I can turn this on for you. And you also get a new instrument cluster, fully digital instrument cluster. And then you get your air conditioning controls over here. These switches over here are for your temperature adjustment. Your My Drive is over here. This gives you sport and normal, as you can see over here. And this panel over here, the center console, is quite wide, and you sit quite far away from your passenger. So that just gives it a lot, makes it feel very spacious. You get a lot of soft touch panels, and overall, in terms of quality, Mazda has not under-delivered in the past few years at least. They've really nice interiors. And check this out, by the way. You get a 12-speaker Bose sound system. I can't wait to try this out. Of course, you get Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, the works, right? And I think it's also worth talking about the overall design. As you can see, it sort of merges, this aluminum panel over here just sort of merges into this dashboard and then comes all the way over here. And that just gives it a feeling of spaciousness and just makes it seem very wide. I like how Mazda has played with lines and such. Check out how the air conditioning just merges into this door panel over here. And in terms of buttons, they feel really good. So you also get a full panoramic roof as well as a sunroof. I'm not going to open the sunroof. As you can see, there's a lot of water. It's been raining. But you get all of that. I'm sure you get a vanity mirror, lighted vanity mirror and such. I really like what I'm seeing inside the CX60. And this is a car that I've really been looking forward to. I have a Mazda CX-5 2.5 turbo at home, and it's one of the best cars that I've ever owned in terms of driving sensation. Now, the back seats of the CX60 space is decent. It's quite good. A lot of headroom, a lot of leg room. And later, when we start our drive to Ipoh, there's going to be 4 of us in the car. And that's just going to make it perfect to have a feel for its spaciousness, luggage capacity, how it feels on the highway at higher speeds and such, and have a feel for the amount of power that it has on tap. But overall, spaciousness, comfort is just top notch. It's a good feeling over at the back over here. So what do you get at the back? You might be wondering. Let me just adjust this. And obviously, dual air conditioning, 2 USB Type-C ports, aluminium finishing, and you don't get side air conditioning vents, which is a bit of a pity. But here's a look at how the interior looks like, the dashboard, I mean. The first impression, this is really nice. I'm really looking forward to driving this. Guys, so I just found out that I'm going to be driving in car number 8, which is basically a black color Mazda CX-60. But this is one thing that I noticed earlier, which I would like to show you, is just the level of details that Mazda has in their cars. Check out this stitching over here. It's just this gold color stitching, right? Of course, it looks very premium, very posh. But check out these highlights over here. Check this out. You just get all these highlights all around here as well that just matches the stitching around the car. And this is just the level of details that I really appreciate about Mazda cars. Let's check out the back. This looks so plush, so premium, man. I think this puts even more expensive car makers, particularly those from Europe, to shame. Just the details, the quality and such. And this, I just love the details on Mazda cars. The CX-60, so far, so good. About to go drive it. So guys, behind the wheel for a couple of minutes now. So this is a strictly first impression drive. So we're driving it to Ipoh for night and driving it back tomorrow in time for the launch, the official launch of the CX-60 as well as the CX-80. Unlike a lot of the other launches, we already know the price for the CX-60, roughly about just about below 201,000 ringgit. In fact, we already know the pricing for the CX-80 as well, somewhere about the 333,000 ringgit region. So how does the CX-60 drive? Well, it drives really nicely. It's typical Mazda. Well, that shouldn't come as too much of a surprise now, should it? Mazda, after all, has not really disappointed when it comes to engineering and such. After all, these are the guys that brought the world such icons as the legendary Wankel engine, rotary engines and such. So when it comes to engineering, Mazda truly does know what it is doing. In fact, these are the guys that not too long ago introduced the GVC driving technology, which basically made an SUV feel like a hot hatch. And you felt that in cars like the CX-5 and such. In fact, the CX-5 is one of the best handling SUVs in the market. So the CX-50 has something called kinetic posture control. Sounds very funky, but let's just call it KPC. So with KPC, what it does is that it minutely brakes the inner rear wheel. So for example, if it's a sweeping right-hander, it just very gently brakes the inner right wheel to give you a tighter turning radius. Fantastic. It really does make the car feel like it is on rails. Long sweeping corners at high speed, not a problem. Feels really good. It truly does feel alive in your hands. And that's the thing about Mazdas, isn't it? That they have sort of really lived up to the Jinba Itai, thing that they have sort of been shouting about for many years now. Jinba Itai basically is a nod to man and beast sort of thing. It's supposed to be a nod to how a horse reacts to its rider. So a horse always reacts to its rider and in the most intimate ways and such. And the one thing that I have to say about the CX60 though, because it's only available as a 2.5 NA, it's only available in a single engine variant. I think that is a bit of a pity because it produces 189 horsepower, 261 Newton meters of torque, and in all intents and purposes, sometimes I wish that Mazda Malaysia, Burmas, would have instead chosen the 2.5 turbo. The 2.5 NA that is in the CX60 is basically the same engine that was in the CX5. And we know for a fact that the CX5 also has the 2.5 turbo. I think that engine would have suited the character of the CX60 even better. Earlier, during the product presentation, they were talking a lot about the CX60 being, very sporty and such. But I feel that this engine does not really live up to the sporty character that Mazda talks about. I think that this 2.5 turbo would have been better. I do understand why they would have chosen this engine, because the 2.5 turbo comes with an all-wheel drive layout, and it is quite a guzzler. I have one at home, a CX5 2.5 turbo, and the way that thing drinks petrol is quite painful, to say the least. But it's just such a nice engine, such a nice powertrain, that I truly do think that it would have suited the CX60 better. But that's not truly a problem though, because you can still cruise comfortably at 160 kilometers per hour. Refinement is really nice in here. They're using very thick glass all around, so it keeps ambient noises down to a minimum. And the KPC that I was telling you about earlier, under heavy braking, it sort of pulls the back of the car down. So the suspension of the CX60 consists of a double wishbone at the front and multi-link at the back. And under heavy braking, it sort of stops the car from lifting at the back, so it keeps it very blunted. And ultimately that gives you a very nice handling. That's just putting it very basic. That it offers very nice handling. I have driven this 2.5 litre naturally aspirated engine in the CX5 before. And in the CX5, because it's lighter and such, it does feel slightly more spirited than it does in the CX60. But the one thing that I've noticed about the 2.5 litre NA in the CX5 is that it is significantly more economical than the 2.5 turbo in the CX5. So I think perhaps that is why Mazda would have gone for this engine choice in the CX60, simply because of economical reasons. So the official fuel consumption figure for this engine in the CX60 is rated at about 7.3 litres per 100 km. I'm not even going to mention how the fuel consumption figure right now, because it's just not representative of what the engine is capable of doing, simply because we've been flooring it all throughout. And I think trying to stick to the speed limit, 120, 130, and then getting in traffic and such, that would be a more correct figure and such. Anyway, from what I felt right now, I wish there was a little bit more power. I was telling my co-passengers that I wish there was about 50 horsepower more. But when it comes to refinement, comfort and such, it's a very nice car. So guys, during the drive just now and the multiple stops that we've had in between, we've got a chance to speak to the guys from Burmas as well as the engineer that is along with us for this drive. And we found out that the reason why we cannot have the CX60 with the 2.5 turbo has something to do with the transmission. So apparently the transmission, the 8-speed automatic transmission without a torque converter, is nicely set up for a naturally aspirated engine, so much so that the ratios will not be able to adapt to the demands of a turbocharged engine. thereabouts. That's my understanding of the explanation provided earlier. And now, after spending some time with the car, I've had a chance to better understand the car, what it has to offer, the good and the bad. And there are a couple of things that stood out. I've already said that I wish there was more power, but I've already explained why that Mazda cannot plonk in a turbocharged engine. I do, however, wish there was a turbocharged engine because 50 horsepower more would have perfected the CX60 package. Now, besides that though, the other thing that I like about the car is the smooth gear shifts. I actually quite like how smooth the transmission works. However, I do wish it was slightly quicker, but then again, this is a cruiser. It's not exactly a performance car. No matter what Mazda says, with talking about the sports character and such, it is a cruiser, which it does really well. It cruises really well. But having said that, along the stretch on the North-South Highway stretch earlier, I also found that the tire roar can be quite noisy. So you actually do hear the some tire noise that intrudes back into the cabin, particularly at higher speed. The other thing that you tend to hear is the whine of the gearbox, particularly during high revs and such. Now, a couple of other things that I would like to point out about the car. Let's get inside. Is this the gear selector? Now, this gives me the illusion that all I got to do is press it up and down and it'll just select accordingly. But that's not to be. So to get into drive, I have to press the unlock button at the top over here, this way, and go all the way down. So that is drive. However, one of us earlier actually accidentally just left it in R, because usually P is just all the way to the top. However, all the way to the top is R now, and the car dangerously started rolling back earlier. So this is not exactly a deal breaker, but it's something for you to look out for. Then besides that, I don't really have a problem with everything that the car has to offer. Now, this is how you select the menus, but because the car is stationary, I thought that you could still select it by touching the screen, but apparently you cannot. You still have to use this rotary dial. So this lets you adjust for example, this is the instrument cluster. I can increase the text size and such, and I can even have it in a more minimalist display, and that's quite nice actually. So, but this is nicer. Anyway, then besides that, you can also adjust your center display. There's all the menus that you get, and other than that, you can also, your sound settings, safety settings. Let's check out safety settings, driver assistance systems. This is where you turn on and off everything. Safety alerts, these are all your chimes and such. And basically, you get to control everything about the car from this rotating dial over here. And then, of course, you got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto that works as well. And the other thing that I need to point out is the back seats of the car. So it's always important to spend a lot of time with the car to get to know it better. But this is, after all, a first impression drive, hence why I'm learning a lot more as I go along and spend more time with this car. I really like this panoramic roof. It makes it look so nice, no doubt. Okay, anyway, I spent some time at the back here earlier, and I found that I sit quite upright. You know, I cannot recline this seat any further, and there's no option to recline it either, which is a bit of a pity because I would like to sit a little bit more further back. And honestly,
Earlier there were 4 people in the car, and I would just like a little bit more legroom as well. Now compare this to what the likes of the Honda CR-V have to offer. The CR-V, for example, is roughly about the same price, maybe about 3K cheaper. But the CR-V feels a lot more spacious, particularly at the back. The Mazda feels very nicely built, no doubt. I like the level of details in here. But somehow the CR-V feels more spacious. You get more legroom at the back. It's even, I think it's better suited for the family. But the Mazda, just if you just have a family of 3, for example, or it's just 2 of you and you need space for when your kids occasionally come and visit, then this is a nice option. I also think that the Honda CR-V is quieter on the highway as compared to the Mazda. The Honda has wheel resonators, noise cancellation, all of that, and ultimately that gives you a very nice quiet interior. But here though, it can get quite noisy, and I do wish, as I said earlier, I do wish it had more power. I do like the fact that you get pedal shifters, but then again, with pedal shifters, I want lightning quick gear shifts, which ultimately I do not get. But I can't stop looking at this interior. This is just such a nice interior. And once you start poking and prodding everything and such, it just feels so nice. It feels like the quality is top notch in here. The other thing that our opinion was divided about earlier is this panel over here. So this is all fully leather. Everything is fully leather, but this is soft touch. And the thing about this leather is that it has divided opinions, because some say that it's just too extreme. This textured leather over here is just too extreme, and they would prefer it to be smooth. I like it as it is. Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. And besides all of that, I think that the interior of the Honda CR-V pull up. I think that the interior of the Mazda CX-60 is just so nice. This is another thing that I think is quite weird, this plastic panel. So there it is. There is a Mazda CX-60. This is the 3.3 liter version with the inline 6 engine. And check this out. This is finished in chrome. It's written inline 6. This is just so nice, right? Why can't they just do it like this? Just have it in chrome and such, rather than that ugly plastic panel over there. So that's one thing that that I think just cheapens the side profile of the car. But then again, this is a car that costs 202,000 ringgit, slightly less, and it's just quite nice. Anyway guys, that's a quick first impression of the Mazda CX-60 now in Malaysia, and with deliveries about to start mid-September. Let me know what you think about it, and if you go for this or you go for something like a Honda CR-V. Thank you for watching.